My sister dropped her 3 kids at my house every weekend for 8 months, never paid, never asked. When I said no more, Mom snapped. Family helps. I sent my sister an invoice. $50/hour x 320 hours $16,000. She laughed. I filed in small claims court. When the summons arrived, my Ring camera caught her minivan at 6:07 p.m. on a Friday, the same way it had caught it almost every Friday since last spring. I was still in my scrubs because I'd come straight from my shift at St. David's Badge, flipped backward hair in a claw-clip brain, running on caffeine and spite. My son Nolan was at the kitchen table doing math homework with his tongue out, like the world depended on it. Then the doorbell. Then my sister's voice through the speaker, bright and breezy, like she was dropping off library books. Abby, open up. We're late. I didn't open it right away. My hands went cold. Anyway, my brain did what it always did in moments like this. It started counting. 1 weekend is 1 favor. 2 weekends is a habit. 8 months is a system. Nolan looked up. Is Aunt Kelsey here? Yeah, I said, and I hated that I sounded tired instead of angry. The bell rang again. 3 fast taps, like she was knocking on a friend's door, not a person she'd been using as unpaid childcare for most of a year. I opened the door. Kelsey stood there with her giant tote bag car keys already in her hand, like she was leaving no matter what I said. Behind her were her kids. Ava, 6, holding a melted-looking unicorn backpack. Liam, 4, already frowning. And baby Joe, 2, with a pacifier clipped to his shirt and sticky hands reaching toward my doorknob like he owned it. Kelsey smiled. Okay, thank you. Love you. Bye. I didn't move aside. She blinked. What? I said it carefully. No. Her smile froze. Abby, don't. I kept my voice calm because Nolan was watching me like my face was the weather report. You can't drop them off. Kelsey laughed once like I'd made a joke. Stop. I'm already late. Trevor's on shift. Mom's at book club. And you're home. I stared at her keys. I'm home with my own kid, not a daycare. Ava shifted her white eyes, flicking between us. Liam pressed into Kelsey's leg. Joe started to whine because he could feel the tension and he was too honest. Kelsey's voice went sharper. Are you seriously doing this at the door? Yes, I said, because this is where you do it. She tried to step forward. I didn't let her. Her eyes narrowed. Abby, I'm leaving them. I swallowed. My mouth was dry. My hands felt like ice. No, you're not. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and rolled her eyes like I was the inconvenience, not the person who'd been cleaning up after 3 kids every Saturday and Sunday for 8 months. God, she snapped. Fine. She turned her head toward the car and yelled, Mom, she's doing it again. And my mother's voice came from the passenger seat, already loaded. Abby, don't make a scene. I laughed without humor. I'm not making a scene. I'm ending one. Mom got out of the minivan like she was walking onto a stage. Donna, 58, perfect hair cardigan, the kind of face that could look disappointed and righteous at the same time. She looked past me into my house. Oh, Nolan's here. Nolan went still at the table. Pencil paused, listening. Mom said family helps. I nodded once. Family asks. Kelsey made a scoffing sound. Oh my God. Mom stepped closer. Abby, you're being dramatic. It's 2 days. It's every weekend, I said. Since May. Mom waved a hand. You're home anyway. That line made my stomach flip because it was the whole truth in 7 words. My life didn't count unless it was convenient for theirs. I took a breath through my nose. No more weekends. Kelsey's mouth twisted. So you're punishing my kids. I looked at Ava's little face, at Liam's frown, at Joe rubbing his eyes with sticky fists. I'm not punishing them. I'm protecting myself. Mom's voice hardened. You owe your sister? I stared at her. For what? For everything. Mom snapped, like it was obvious, like my time was community property. Kelsey stepped back toward the van and muttered, Unbelievable. Mom's eyes narrowed. Abby, if you do this, don't expect... I cut in, still calm. Okay. Mom blinked. Okay. What? Okay, I repeated, and my voice surprised even me because it was steady. Then we're done. Kelsey laughed again, mean this time. You're insane. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't negotiate. I pulled my phone out, opened my notes app, and said, I'm sending you an invoice. Kelsey actually burst out laughing. Full laugh. Head tipped back. An invoice for babysitting. You're kidding. I looked at her and said $50 an hour, 8 months, every weekend. Mom made a disgusted noise. Abby. Kelsey wiped under her eye like she'd laughed so hard she teared up. You can't be serious. I looked at Nolan at the way he was holding his pencil too tight, then back at my sister. I am, I said. Then I shut my front door. I'm Abby. I'm 33. I live in Austin, Texas, in a 2-bedroom rental off Lamar that I can barely afford but refuse to leave because Nolan's school is stable, and stability is the closest thing to oxygen when you're raising a kid alone. I'm a medical assistant in cardiology. Not glamorous, not flexible. The kind of job where you don't get to just swap weekends without someone else paying for it. Nolan is 7. His dad Eric pays child support when he remembers, which is to say, not consistently. We've been on our own since Nolan was 2. I'm used to doing hard things. I'm not used to being volunteered for them. Kelsey is my younger sister. She's 30. She has 3 kids with Trevor, her husband, who is allergic to responsibility and proud of it. Kelsey's life is chaos, and my mother treats that chaos like a weather event we all have to adapt to. The first weekend it happened was May 5th. I remember because I'd circled it on my calendar as Nolan and me pool day. At 9:14 a.m., I got this text from Kelsey. Hey, can you take the kids for a few hours emergency? A few hours is how traps start. I wrote back, what emergency? She sent Trevor got called in. I need to work a double, please. Then a second text. On my way. No question mark, just a decision. I should have said no. I didn't. I told myself it was temporary. It wasn't. They arrived with no diapers for Joe, no change of clothes, 1 sippy cup a bag of goldfish crackers like that was a meal plan. Kelsey kissed the air near my cheek and said, "You're the best," and then she left. At 6:30 p.m. I texted, "When are you picking them up?" She replied at 8:02 p.m., running late. Keep them overnight. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Nolan stood in the doorway of his room with his toothbrush in his hand and asked, "Why is Ava sleeping on my floor?" I said, "Just tonight." He nodded like he understood, but his shoulders did that small droop kids get when they're learning that just tonight can mean your life doesn't belong to you. Incident 1 was June 10th. I had a scheduled Saturday shift I'd swapped weeks in advance, and I'd paid my neighbor's teenage daughter Lily $40 to watch Nolan for 3 hours after school, because I didn't have anyone else. At 7:48 p.m. Friday, Kelsey texted dropping kids at 8. Date night. You're home. I wrote, no, I work tomorrow. She responded, LOL, you'll figure it out. Then Mom texted in the family thread, be nice, Abby. Kelsey needs a break. I sat in my car in the parking lot after work and just stared at the steering wheel because my hands were shaking and I didn't know where to put the feeling. I ended up paying Lily again to watch Nolan and then calling in a favor from a coworker to cover part of my shift. I traded hours like my life was a game of Jenga. Kelsey never offered to pay the babysitter. She never asked if I could afford it. She just kept taking. Incident 2 was July 4th weekend. Kelsey dropped them off for fireworks and didn't come back until Sunday night. Sunday night at 10:23 p.m. I opened the door and she walked in like she was returning a borrowed book. Oh my God, thank you, she said, breezy. They were fine, right? Ava fell asleep on my couch with her shoes on. Liam had a rash because someone forgot to pack his allergy meds. Joe had a diaper so full it sagged. I looked at Kelsey and said, you can't do this. She smiled like she was soothing a child. Relax. It's family. That word family. In my house, it always meant swallow it. My mom had trained us on the family language our whole lives. Don't be difficult. Don't make a scene. Be flexible. Kelsey has it harder. And the big one family helps. I used to swallow it because I wanted peace, because I wanted my mom's approval, because I wanted Nolan to have grandparents who showed up without conditions. But Nolan was learning to shrink. He started asking, are they coming again every Friday, like it was a weather forecast? He started putting his favorite toys on the top shelf so little hands wouldn't break them. He started eating quieter when Ava and Liam were loud because he didn't want attention. One night after Joe spilled juice all over Nolan's homework, Nolan whispered, it's okay, Mom. I can redo it. The calmness in his voice made me sick. Kids get calm like that when they've had too much. I thought it was temporary. It wasn't. By August, I had a pattern. Every Friday evening, every Saturday morning, every Sunday, running late like my time was a default setting. I started keeping receipts without meaning to. Screenshots of text notes in my calendar, grocery receipts where my normal $120 week turned into $230 because 3 extra kids eat like tiny raccoons with opinions. I didn't do it to be petty. I did it because I could feel myself being rewritten into a person who didn't get to say no. The weekend I finally snapped started like every other weekend. Friday, January 5th, 2026. At 4:32 p.m., Kelsey texted bringing kids at 6. I stared at my phone. No, can you? No, please. Just an announcement. I typed no. She sent back, excuse me. I wrote, I'm not available. Then Mom called me immediately because of course she did. My mom treats my boundaries like a fire alarm. I answered, and she didn't even say hello.
Abby, what is this?
I said, it's me saying no. Mom sighed loudly. Kelsey needs help. I said, I've been helping every weekend. Mom's voice went syrupy, the tone she uses when she's about to weaponize guilt. You don't understand what it's like with 3 kids. I kept my voice flat. Then Kelsey should stop leaving them with me. Mom snapped, she's your sister. I said she's not my responsibility. Mom got sharper. What are you even doing that's so important? I looked at Nolan across the table, coloring, quietly listening. I said, I'm raising my kid. Mom scoffed. You're always so selfish. That word hit me like a slap, because it was the most upside-down thing she could say. I'd been giving so much my life had bruises. I said, I'm hanging up now. Mom raised her voice. Don't you dare. I ended the call. Wave 1 was the private pressure. Kelsey sent text after text. Wow, so you hate my kids. Mom says you're being spiteful. I'm literally shaking. I didn't respond. At 5:59 p.m., my Ring camera pinged. Minivan. I felt that cold rush again. My body knew the routine before my brain could catch up. Nolan looked up and whispered, They're here. I know, I said. I opened the door and didn't step aside. Kelsey did that same move she always did, shifting the tote bag forward like momentum would carry her kids into my house. I said no. Her face twisted. Abby, stop being dramatic. Then she tried the reframe, the one that always worked before. We're all going to Mom's later anyway, she said. This is just easier. Easier for you, I said. Mom was in the passenger seat again. She climbed out like she was arriving to correct a misbehaving employee. Abby, she said, warning. I said, I'm not taking them. Kelsey's voice got loud. So what? I just cancel my whole life because you're in a mood. I stared at her. You haven't asked me in 8 months. She scoffed. Because you always say yes. I said, not anymore. That's when wave 2 hit, the practical harm. Mom stepped forward and said, cool as ice. If you won't help, then don't expect help. I blinked. What help? Mom's eyes narrowed. You know, holidays, birthdays, anything. There it was. Compliance as entry fee. Kelsey chimed in, smirking. And don't come crying when you need a babysitter. I almost laughed because it was so ridiculous. I said, I've never dropped my kid at your house and driven away. Kelsey's smile went thin. Because you don't have anyone. That line landed hard. Nolan heard it. I saw it in the way his shoulders tightened. My mouth went dry. I looked at my sister and said, go. She took a step back, eyes blazing. Fine, whatever. Then Mom threw the last hook, the reasonable voice cruelty. This is why people don't want to help you, Mom said, calm and nasty. You make everything a fight. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I stepped inside, shut the door, and locked it. I stood there with my forehead against the wood while my phone buzzed again and again. Kelsey texting. Mom texting. A family group chat lighting up like a slot machine. You're breaking Mom's heart. The kids are crying. You need therapy. I stared at the screen until it blurred. Then I opened my notes app and started listing dates. May 5th, May 12th, May 19th. Every weekend, 2 days each. 10 hours each day, because they were always dropped early and picked up late. I wasn't guessing. I had timestamps, Ring notifications texts that said, on my way at 7:00 a.m. and running late at 9:00 p.m. I made a folder in my phone called Kelsey Childcare. Screenshots, calendar entries, grocery receipts, a photo of Ava's inhaler label, because Kelsey once said she forgot what it was called. I didn't do it because I wanted revenge. I did it because I was done being gaslit into thinking my time didn't count. That's when I stopped arguing and started documenting. On Monday, January 8th, I sent Kelsey a single message. Starting immediately, I am not available for weekend childcare. If you want paid babysitting, the rate is $50 an hour, with 48 hours notice. She replied in under a minute, LMO. I waited one day. Then I sent the invoice. It was a PDF from a free template I found online. I filled it out like it was work, because this was work. Childcare services. 3 children, $50 an hour, 320 hours. Total $16,000 due in 14 days. I attached it and wrote, this is for May 5th to December 31st weekends only. I have timestamps. Kelsey responded, ha ha, then you can't charge family. Then good luck collecting. So I sent a demand letter by certified mail. I kept the receipt. I kept the tracking number. I kept the green signature card when it came back signed in Kelsey's loopy handwriting. 2 days later, Mom called me furious. You are humiliating your sister. I said she humiliated me for 8 months. Mom snapped. You don't take family to court. I said family doesn't drop 3 kids on your porch like trash day. Mom went quiet for 1 second, then said, "If you do this, don't call me." I stared at my kitchen wall and felt something in me unclench. "Okay," I said, and I meant it. I filed in small claims the next morning. Travis County Justice Court. I paid the filing fee with my debit card and watched my bank app dip into the red like a heartbeat. At the clerk window, a woman with tired eyes looked at my paperwork and said, "You have supporting documents." I slid my folder across the counter. She flipped through screenshots and nodded once like she'd seen this exact story wearing different names. She said, "You'll get a court date. Service takes a bit." I said I can wait. The summons didn't arrive at my house. It arrived at Kelsey's. And I didn't know it had happened until my phone started blowing up at 2:16 p.m. on a Wednesday. First it was Mom, then Kelsey, then Trevor, then my aunt, because in my family, a boundary isn't real until it's a group project. Kelsey's text came in all caps. "What the actual hell is this?" Then a photo, a white paper taped to her front door. Citation, small claims. My name in the corner, clean and official. My stomach dropped anyway, even though I'd done it on purpose because there's a difference between deciding and seeing it in black and white. Mom called again. I let it ring twice just to breathe. Then I answered. Mom didn't bother with hello. "Abby, are you out of your mind?" I said no. Her voice shook. "You served your sister." I said yes. "You're tearing this family apart," Mom snapped, like I was the one who started it. I stayed calm. Kelsey can pay me or explain to a judge why she thinks my weekends are free. Mom hissed, "It's going to make us look bad." There it was. The real stake. Not the kids, not my exhaustion, not Nolan learning to disappear. Optics. "I don't care how it looks," I said. Mom's voice got tight. "Drop it." I asked, "Is Kelsey paying me?" Mom snapped, "No." "Then I'm not dropping it," I said. Kelsey came on the line like Mom handed her the phone mid-rage. I could hear her breathing hard. "You're disgusting," Kelsey said. I waited. I didn't fill the silence. I've learned silence makes people tell on themselves. She spat, "I can't believe you're doing this over babysitting." I said it wasn't babysitting, it was a schedule. Kelsey laughed high and mean. "You're acting like you ran a daycare." I said you treated my house like one. Kelsey's voice rose. "You're going to lose. You know that, right?" I asked, "Are you saying you didn't drop your kids off every weekend?" She went quiet. I said, "Do you want to tell the judge that under oath?" She snapped, "You're such a—" I cut in still calm. "I'm not arguing. The court date is on the citation." Then I said, "The boundary sentence, clean and flat, the kind you can't twist. Do not bring your kids to my house again. If you leave them on my porch, I will call the police for abandonment." There was a beat, then screaming in the background. Mom yelling my name, Kelsey cursing, Trevor's voice barking, "Give me the phone." And then Kelsey did the thing she always did when she couldn't control me. She showed up. At 6:41 p.m., my Ring camera pinged. Minivan. My hands went cold. Nolan looked up from the couch, eyes wide. "I don't want them here," he whispered. "I know," I said. I didn't open the door. Kelsey pounded on it like she was trying to knock it down with anger alone. "Abby, open up." I stayed behind the door and spoke through it. "Leave." "You just want to talk," she yelled. "No," I said. "You want to scare me." Mom's voice cut in louder. "Abby, stop this. Stop it right now." I didn't raise my voice. "Go home." Kelsey shouted, "You can't do this to me." I put my phone in my hand and opened my contacts, thumb hovering. My whole body felt like it was vibrating, but my voice stayed steady because Nolan was right behind me. "Kelsey," I said through the door, "if you don't leave in 10 seconds, I'm calling the police." She laughed wild and disbelieving. "You wouldn't." My brain counted again. At 5, I called. I didn't dramatize it. "This is Abby Alvarez," I said to the dispatcher. "My sister is at my house yelling. She has been warned. I need an officer to make them leave." Kelsey heard me. The pounding stopped, and then I heard the panic immediate and ugly. Mom's voice got small for the first time. "Abby, don't." I didn't respond because the irreversible step wasn't the lawsuit. It was me choosing my child's safety over my mother's approval. When the officer arrived, Kelsey and Mom were still in the driveway, still talking fast, like they could rewrite reality if they spoke loud enough. The officer looked at me, then at them, then at Nolan peeking around my leg. He said, "Ma'am, do you want them trespassed?" My throat got tight. I nodded once. Yes. Kelsey's face went white. Mom's mouth opened, and I heard my mother whisper like she couldn't believe it. She did it. The first weekend after that felt unreal. Friday night came and my house stayed quiet. No ring notification, no pounding, no we're late. Nolan sat on the living room floor building Legos and kept glancing at the window like he expected someone to appear. At 7:12 p.m., he looked up at me and asked, "They're not coming." "No," I said. He blinked, then his shoulders dropped like he'd been holding them up for months. "Okay," he said, and went back to his Legos. Saturday morning, we made pancakes. Nolan got batter on his shirt and laughed. Actual laughter, not the careful kind. Can we go to the park? He asked. Yes, I said. We went. No extra car seats. No diaper bag for someone else's baby. No watching 3 kids like a hawk while my own kid waited quietly for my attention. Just us. Kelsey tried one last tactic on Sunday evening. A photo message, a cake box on her counter, text. Can we talk like adults, I baked? I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied with one sentence. Court is the place for this. Mom tried too. She left a voicemail voice soft and wounded, like she was auditioning. Abby, you've made your point. Let's move on. My point wasn't punishment. My point was truth. So I texted her back also one sentence. I'm not available for being used. The small claims hearing was 3 weeks later. Kelsey showed up in a blazer, like she was playing a character. She rolled her eyes when the judge asked basic questions. She tried to joke. She tried to call me dramatic. It didn't land the way it does in my mother's kitchen, because a judge doesn't care about family slogans. A judge cares about dates, messages, patterns, and whether you think someone else's labor is free. My folder did the talking. And even before the ruling, something had already changed in my life. The weekends were mine again. Nolan stopped asking, are they coming on Fridays? He started asking, what are we doing? That's the difference between surviving and living. Here's what I learned and what I'm keeping. Family help is a gift, not a draft notice. Access to me is not a family right. And if you laugh when I tell you my time matters, you don't get my time anymore. I'm not available for that.